Genetics. And genetics play a big part in your body's growth, the shape, and how you look. So that's all based on genetics, not based on drugs. So we were talking about this, and you were saying that somebody will see somebody really well built and they say, they're on the juice. And they're not.
Comes to everything. If you're a basketball player, a football player, a fighter,
right,
a bodybuilder, whatever it is, genetics is going to be the main thing of, how good you are at what you do.
Right.
Genetics is everything. I mean, if you're 5'2", you're not going to be a pro basketball player because you were not born with the genetics to do that. And there's people that are not born with the genetics to be a bodybuilder. And no matter how much drugs you take, what you do, how long you work out, it's not going to happen. There's other guys that can go in the gym and talk and barely work out for half an hour, and they just grow.
Trainers, and year after year, they never change. They look the same. A lot of that is genetics, but a lot of it also is their diet, of course, because they're not eating properly. They're not training right. But if they did train right and they did follow their diet properly, they would make some gains, but they wouldn't make the massive gains that people do that have good genetics.
Yeah. I have personally known guys that have an awful diet and they don't work out very hard and they look amazing.
Yeah.
And I've known other guys that, they bring their ice chest, they have 8 meals packed every day, they're taking every drug under the sun, and they look like shit. And I'm like, they work out 2 hours a day, they do cardio, they're eating a strict diet, and people have to accept it and understand, that it is possible.
But you can kind of alter that a little bit, right?
Yeah, everyone wants what they don't have. And, for me, the perfect scenario of a bodybuilder, in my opinion, would be someone that has a very fast metabolism and is naturally skinny and has smaller joints. So the smaller the joints,
exactly,
the bigger the muscles look. When you have a fast metabolism, you can eat as much as possible, and all you do is get bigger. You never get fat.
You know what name comes to mind when we say that? Frank Zane.
Yeah, there's a million names, of guys that, Flex Wheeler. They just have these little tiny wrists, little tiny elbow joints.
It's so hard that you overtrain, you still don't make any gains.
Yeah. You got to be smart with, the choices you make, and, you got to take people's advice.
You have good genetics. You could still achieve a good body.
Yeah. Real quick, there is a gentleman that trains at North Hollywood Golds in the mornings. You know who he is. Biggest triceps you've ever seen. Probably bigger than mine. Tattooed.
He's a bodybuilder?
He's not a bodybuilder. He did about
20 I know
years.
we're talking about, sure.
His physique was better than anyone I've ever seen in my life. 28-inch waist, 23-inch arms. Unbelievable. The biggest triceps I've ever seen. Synthol and this and that, whatever you want to say about my triceps. This guy has bigger triceps than me. And the point of the matter is he's never taken a steroid in his life. And he trained chest and arms every single day for 20 years, and he came out a monster with no drugs.
That's the thing. His workout is very simple.
When I put this, that's impossible.
No, it's not.
That's impossible.
You're doing a prison workout. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm used to. But he does have amazing arms. I love milk. And it's just like one carton after another.
Yeah.
So genetics is something you either have or you don't. Some guys...
You have to accept that there's always going to be people out there better than you.
Right.
There's always going to be someone better looking, better body,
right,
bigger, faster, stronger, more successful, whatever it is. And the truth of the matter is you want to learn from the people, that are better than you.
Right. And just be the best you can.
And there's always going to be someone better.
And don't put other people down for being better. How can I be like Arnold? Or I'll get one, how can I be like Frank Zane? Or how can I be like Dave Draper? How can I be like you? How can I be like this guy? My advice to someone like that is just be the best you can be. Now, those people are already taken. They already have their own style. They have their name. They have their body. You can't be them. It's like, how do I be Jake Gyllenhaal or John Cena? They're there. You need to be you and the best you. Now, what it boils down to is a lot of things. Number one, genetics. Genetics play an important part on your body. If you have the genetic type of body that can build and grow muscle and it comes easy, you're going to have a good body. You could be an ectomorph or an endomorph, either heavy or thin, and you've got to train and diet accordingly to what you are. And it's just not always that easy. People who are heavy have a really hard time losing the body fat. They can't change their diet. They have a hard time doing it, and they get down and then they go up again. People who are skinny can eat anything in the world and they can't gain size. It's just a time factor. You got to set your goals not high, but higher. So in other words, if you have a goal to do something, give yourself a month to achieve a certain thing. When you get to that month and you've achieved it, then give yourself a new goal for the following month. If you put yourself into a goal to gain 70 pounds of muscle and you're going to do it right away, it's never going to happen. I'm a firm believer in that. If you go into the gym, you do the same thing every day, and you eat the same food every day, your body is not going to change. It's going to be the same as it is all year long. I've seen people do that. year after year after year after year. You need to change it up. Change it to dumbbell curls, change it to preacher curls, change it to cable curls. Change it all the time so your body never knows what to expect. This way you can keep it interested in what you're doing and you can get progress doing it. Joe Weider said years ago this way, but he said, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and scare your muscles into growing by a heavy workout. Well, we know we're not going to do that at 2 in the morning, but what he is saying, shock your muscles. Genetics, but what's your bone structure like? What's your height? What's your girth? Are you short and squatty? Now, those things make a difference in your body. Franco Columbu was a very short guy. I think he was like 5'4", but he was thick, 215 pounds. He had the upper body of a full-size man. He had the thickness of a full-size man. Yes, shorter guys have a shorter range of motion. So if they're benching, they're right here. If they're squatting, it's right here. So it's easier to pack on size. A 27 sleeve length compared to a 35, the arm's going to look a lot bigger. So you have to think about that too. So there we talk about structure. Arnold was 6'2". He had a big structure. He had a big structure and he had a small waist. He had wide shoulders. He was able to build upon that. Dave Draper, a big man, like 6'1", maybe about 6'1", 6'2", a big structure, big arms, and he trained hard. So it's not for everybody. You have to find what works to you. Now, you guys send me emails all the time, so take a look at your exercises, take a look at your form. Form is so important. It's not the weight, it's the form. You have to take that muscle and work each rep. I got nothing to prove. I made my name. Now I'm older and I'm trying to stay in shape and do the best I can and pass my knowledge on to you, the younger generation, and you older guys who want to do what I do. So I've been sitting around thinking about this and I thought, I'm going to put together a quick show. And
Phil Heath recently. And he was talking about eating 5 to 6 pounds of meat in a day. There's 450 grams of protein in 1 pound of meat. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with 2,000 grams of protein in your body?
Your body's not going to utilize it.
You're not going to utilize it. It's going to majorly stress out your digestive system and your kidneys.
Yeah.
I just don't believe it's true. I'm sorry. I think it's a lie.
I don't think it's true.
We produce this thing called myostatin, which is a muscle inhibitor. From an evolutionary standpoint, this was nature's way of preventing us from getting so much muscle that then we had to find enough nutrients to feed it.
Right.
And if we couldn't find the nutrients to feed it, we would die. In other words, it would reduce our chance of survival. So we have anabolic properties that are natural in our body. We have, things that suppress the anabolic properties in our body. Someone like Sergio Oliva, who didn't have any advanced training techniques, and the drug regime that existed back then was probably not as good at, how does a guy like that get so big? Well, he probably had very little myostatin being produced.
Well, how do you know? Can you test yourself to see?
Well, that's a good question. Flex Wheeler and that Paul Dillette were myostatin inhibited, at least to a degree. Now, how would they know that unless there was a test? Myostatin, right? In fact, if you could figure this out, you might not even need steroids, right? You could actually...
No, I know that.
Anomaly where these guys just don't produce the amount of myostatin, and they get like crazy muscular, and their diets aren't any different, and they don't exercise any more than the next animal does.
Well, everybody seems to think that steroids is the answer. They say, and I'm not against steroids. I don't ever badmouth anything, but they'll say, well, they're big because of steroids, and that's not always the case. Now, many bodybuilders don't have that. They were born with body parts that are slow. They don't seem to respond properly. I was not born with good genetics. I was a very thin kid. I had skinny legs. I had buggy whip arms, if you want to think about that. But I decided to start working out. I said, I want to build my body up a little bit and join the YMCA. I was strong. I had genetically good strength. Let me put it that way. So I entered powerlifting. I figured, well, maybe this is the way to go. I'll have fun with that. But then things started to develop around it. They're taking huge quantities, which I've never, ever done. I don't think it's necessary, and I want to live a long life. But genetics play key. If you got good calves, they get better. The problem with having genetic abs, for me, is if I work them too hard, they get too thick. Arnold didn't really have good genetics. He had sloping shoulders. His calves are weak. But he managed to get through it and pull it all together. Know our body, know ourselves, know what we're good at, and know where our weak points are, and know how to work them. Now, you don't want to overtrain the muscle, because you can do that as well, and you'll know if you're overtraining if it's not responding. Your bicep, Al, he said, I worked it every day. I said, every day, really? He says, every day, just 2 or 3 sets. Well, I tried it. It didn't do a lot for me. Maybe I didn't go heavy enough. Maybe I went too light. Maybe I did too heavy. I don't really know, but it seemed to get smaller, because even Arnold today, in his age of 70, still has a great bicep. It's just there. It just responded really well. So you have to figure out what works for you. Chest, I know, is a lot. It's hard for a lot of people. So if you want to switch to dumbbells rather than a barbell, you'll get more development in cable crossovers. If you do them properly, they're cable crossovers. They're not pressing. I see so many people pressing the cables. It's a crossover. Switch sides. This brings your pec all the way across, and it will develop the inner pec, and a lot of people don't have that. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up about genetics. I think it's really important to have good genetics. You can't buy them. You're either born with them or you're not born with them. Blame your parents. They're the ones who gave them to you. But I still think that genetics is the key to a great body, and it doesn't mean that you can't have one without it. It just means you have to work a little harder and take the right supplements.